Learning Target 5, solving quadratic equations using factoring. Factoring is really similar to what we did in the warm-up, the daily math problem where you're drawing all those squares and foiling. It's kind of the opposite of foiling. We'll get to that in just a minute. First, all I need you to do is just write down these definitions of a couple different forms and then the zero product property, which is really important for solving the equations. Okay, the zero product property is really important. It says if the product of two or more factors equals 0, then at least one of those two factors equals 0. So if you have something like this, maybe you have an equation y equals a times b. Okay, so just any two things. What the zero product property tells you is that if this product equals 0, then either A or B or both has to be 0. So if A times B equals 0, then either A equals 0 or B equals 0 or both A and B equals 0. So we're going to see a couple examples of this. This first one is already in factored form. So now all you need to do is solve each for x. And this is where we use the zero product property. So we have this, x minus 9, times this, 3x plus 4 equals 0. That means that in order for this whole thing to equal 0, one of these two pieces has to equal 0. So how we would solve this is we would take each piece and set it equal to 0. So you take this first one, x minus 9, set that equal to 0. And you would take the second piece, 3x plus 4, set that equal to 0. Solving for x then, we get x here, x equals 9. Here we'll get x equals negative 4 over 3. So if I've solved it for x, then my two answers would be x equals 9, x equals negative 4 over 3. The next example, there are 3 pieces, so it's a product of 3 terms. So you set each term equal to 0 again. And solve them for x. So here x would equal 0, here x would be negative 6, and here x would be 9/4. So if x is any or all of these numbers, then this product will equal 0. And that's what we wanted. Like if you plug in a 0 for x, you'll get 4 times 0 times all the rest of that. And anything times 0 equals 0. So that works. Okay. Now sometimes you will have an equation in non-factored form or in expanded form or in some other sort of form. And so in order to factor it, it's kind of, honestly, it's just a problem solving kind of exercise. So there's no real like secret to factoring. It's just kind of one of those things that like you do it a whole bunch and then you get better at it as you practice. So if you don't exactly see right away how to factor each one, just try different things. Like I said, it's kind of a problem solving thing, and you'll start to get better at it just as you do it more. The first step always, though, is if you have an equation like this, plug in 0 for y. So now you have x squared minus 2x equals 0. If you want to think back to those boxes that we did in the daily math, you're looking at what times what equals this x squared minus x. You see in each term that there is an x, so you can factor out an x. You're left with x minus 2 if you divide each of these by x. So if you divide this by x, you just get x, and you divide 2x by x, and you get 2. So this is factored, kind of going backwards from foiling. Set that equal to 0, and then use the zero product property. So set x equal to 0 and x minus 2 equal to 0, and we get our solutions as x equals 0 and x equals 2. Okay, feel free to pause this video at any time, or rewind a little bit, not rewind, but go back and re-watch and listen to one of these examples if I blew through it kind of fast. The second one, you need to get this 5x over to the other side first. So we'll actually end up with 2x squared minus 5x equals y. Again, set y equal to 0. 2x squared minus 5x equals 0. We see that there is an x in each term. So I'm going to pull the x out. That leaves me with 2 times x minus 5, still equal to 0. So using the zero product property, x equals 0 or 2x minus 5 equals 0. For this part, we just get x equals 0. For here, we'll get x equals 5 over 2. Okay. Down here, same thing. Put in a 0 for y. When you have 3 terms like this, one kind of strategy you can look at is look at the constant term, the term without any x's attached to it. Look at what are the factors of that number. Okay, so we can try 1 and 25. We can try 5 and 5. There are no other factors of 25. Let's try 5 and 5. Plus something times x plus something. Okay. The reason we know that is because here we have an x squared. There's no coefficient, so I'm not going to have a coefficient on either one of these. This is like my first part. If I'm foiling, this would be my first terms. I would get x times x, which is x squared. Then you look at the constant, and again, that's where you start looking at the factors. So we could do 1 and 25, or we could do 5 and 5. So if we try 5 and 5, and then just to check our work, I'm going to FOIL it out. So I'm going to do first x squared. Outside terms gives me 5x. Inside terms gives me 5x. Last terms gives me plus 25. So that is x squared plus 10x plus 25. And that's exactly what we had up there. So this is our factored form. Now I'm going to come down here and use the zero product property to solve it. So x plus 5 equals 0, and our other factor is also x plus 5, so I don't need to write that again. In order for this to be 0, x has to be negative 5. And that's all you have to do. Over here, again, start with this. You know x plus something, x plus something. Okay, because we have an x squared here with no coefficient. Now we need to start looking for the factors of 42. So the factors of 42, we can say 1 times 42. You can also do 6 times 7, or you could also do 3 times 14. And I believe that's all of them. So from this list, we need to pick out a few things to put in the rest of these terms. And we're looking for something now that we know all of these things, when you multiply them together, will give us 42. So now we're looking for something that that inside term and the outside term, that when you add up, like if I put in a 1 here and a 42 here, those inside terms, the middle two terms, if I expand it, I'm going to end up getting 1x plus 42x. And 1 plus 42x does not equal 11x. Okay, so I know it's not 1 and 42. So if you try 6 and 7, inside terms, you'll get 6x. Outside terms, you'll get 7x. So it gives me a total of 13x, also not 11x. So my last combination that I can try is 3 and 14. Now 3 and 14 is a little bit tricky because, actually let me leave those there, because you want to look at something that's going to give you negative 42. So you can try negative 3 and positive 14. So our inside term is negative 3x. Our outside term is plus 14x. Negative 3x plus 14x, that does give us 11x. So that is what we were looking for. Plus negative 3 equals 0. So x equals 3. And x plus 14 equals 0. So x equals negative 14. All right. 2 more. Here again we have 42. So go back to our factors of 42. We had 1 times 42. We also had 6 times 7. And here there's no coefficient on the x. So this is just going to be x plus something times x plus something. Look at what else can I put in these two terms. Well, negative 6 times negative 7 is also equal to 42. So I'm going to try that. So if I expand it, I'll get x squared minus 6x minus 7x plus 42. That gives me x squared minus 13x plus 42. And that's exactly what I was looking for. So now set this equal to 0. It should have been set equal to 0 to begin with. But now we know that this is our factored form. So apply the zero product property. X plus negative 6 equals 0. X plus negative 7 equals 0. So x equals 6 and x equals 7. Last example then. First I just need to move that 10 over. So I actually get y equals x squared minus 3x minus 10. So starting to factor, looking for factors of 10, I've got 1 times 10, 2 times 5. Take a look at this middle term for a second. Since that's negative and this negative 10, that means one of these two factors is going to have to be negative. So it's going to be x plus negative something times x plus something. You can kind of look at 1 times 10 and see that if you put like a 1 in here and a 10 in there, we're never going to get negative 3 in the middle. And that's just kind of one of those things that you pick up by doing it a lot. So that's going to be a positive 2 now, that's going to be a negative 5. Expanding, I get x squared minus 5x plus 2x minus 10. And that is x squared minus 3x minus 10. So this is all set equal to 0. So x plus 2 equals 0, or x plus negative 5 equals 0. And x equals negative 2, or x equals 5. So before class, give these a shot. This one is already solved for you, or already factored for you, rather. So all you have to do is use the zero product property to solve this equation. These next two, you will have to factor them before you can use the zero product property and solve it. Okay?